Remember when Saturday mornings felt endless, and every cartoon had that odd Filmation sparkle, a mix of recycled animation, echoey sound, and heartwarming chaos? Well, the 1970s were Filmation's wild experiment years, when the studio was pumping out forgotten TV movies, strange crossovers, and animated classics that slipped through the cracks. Some were magical, others were downright weird, and by the end of this list, you'll realize just how deep Filmation's vault really goes. Journey back to Oz, 1972. Imagine The Wizard of Oz retold with that unmistakable Filmation shimmer, familiar faces, limited movement, and a voice cast that makes you do a double take. Journey Back to Oz was Filmation's big screen gamble, featuring Liza Minnelli, yes, Judy Garland's real-life daughter, as Dorothy. The film began production in the mid-60s, but didn't see daylight until nearly a decade later due to budget chaos. The result was a fever dream of bright colors, talking ornaments, and a Tin Man who looked oddly metallic for Saturday morning television. While critics dismissed it as a cheap imitation, fans today see it as one of the boldest animated experiments of the era. It blended classic charm with that awkward 70s groove. And the wildest part? It didn't stop there years later. Filmation repackaged it for TV with live-action segments featuring Bill Cosby as the host, turning one movie into two entirely different memories. Treasure Island, 1973. Before Disney turned pirates into theme park billionaires, Filmation gave us Treasure Island, a straight-faced, morally charged retelling of Robert Louis Stevenson's classic. It was part of their Family Classics line, aimed to show parents that cartoons could also be educational. What it actually delivered was a strange blend of stiff animation, grand dialogue, and the most monotone parrot ever drawn. Yet there's charm buried in this treasure chest. The film took its storytelling seriously, giving kids a crash course in loyalty, greed, and adventure without the Hollywood gloss. It even made Long John Silver sound like your overly dramatic uncle reading bedtime stories. Critics might have missed it, but for Saturday matinee audiences, it was pure gold. Today, Treasure Island has become a forgotten relic, one that reminds us Filmation could make even high C's. Morality tales feel like a public school history lesson, wrapped in pirate hats and parrot squawks. Oliver Twist, 1974. Now this one's a curious gem. Oliver Twist was Filmation's follow-up to Treasure Island, another swing at the respectable family literature market. Instead of rowdy pirates, we got chimney sweeps, pickpockets, and a whole lot of melodrama, all told in that unmistakable Filmation rhythm. What's fascinating is how seriously the studio treated Dickens' material. The movie leaned into tragedy and redemption, capturing the grime of 19th century London with, well, as much grime as Filmation's clean lines would allow. The animation was basic, but the intent was huge. They wanted to prove cartoons could handle moral storytelling, even when the subject was a starving orphan. Oliver Twist might have lacked the emotional punch of Disney, but it showed Filmation's quiet ambition to blend art, empathy, and budget-saving techniques in equal measure. Today, it stands as one of those lost TV movie curiosities, more heartfelt than stylish, but unmistakably sincere. Daffy Duck and Porky Pig meet the Groovy Ghoulies, 1972. Now this crossover was pure Saturday morning madness. Warner Brothers and Filmation, two rival worlds, collided for one of television's strangest experiments. The Looney Tunes crew somehow ended up sharing screen time with Filmation's Groovy Ghoulies, a band of monster misfits straight out of a haunted jukebox. The result? A surreal blend of slapstick, laugh tracks, and bizarre musical numbers that felt like watching Saturday morning on a sugar rush. Daffy Duck cracked jokes, Dracula sang rock tunes, and Porky Pig looked like he wanted to go home. This was the first and last time the studios teamed up, and after watching, you'll understand why. Still, for fans of crossover chaos, it's a time capsule proof that television once threw everything into the cauldron just to see if it bubbled. It's weird, it's clumsy, and it's absolutely unforgettable. Lassie and the Spirit of Thunder Mountain, 1972. What happens when Filmation takes on a classic dog hero? You get Lassie and the Spirit of Thunder Mountain, a mystical, slightly eerie, and oddly eco-conscious animated special. Made as a pilot for Lassie's Rescue Rangers, this film introduced the famous collie leading a family of wildlife protectors in a world filled with logging companies, forest fires, and mysterious mountain spirits. The animation was simple but atmospheric, with smoky backgrounds and haunting music that felt more like a ghost story than a pet adventure. It was one of the earliest Saturday superstar movies, trying to blend moral lessons with fantasy. Lassie's calm heroism balanced beautifully against the story's supernatural hints. While it didn't set the ratings on fire, it paved the way for Filmation's later environmental themes, seen in Arc 2 and The New Adventures of Gilligan, a forgotten experiment that proved Lassie could save both children and ecosystems one paw at a time. The Brady Kids on Mysterious Island, 1972. You've heard of Gilligan's Island, but did you know the Brady Kids got shipwrecked too? This strange crossover launched the animated spin-off of The Brady Bunch, starting with a made-for-TV movie where the kids crash land on a magical island filled with talking birds, ancient ruins, and a handful of psychedelic plot twists. It was supposed to show how groovy the Brady clan could be when untethered from their sitcom house. Instead, it looked like Lost on a breakfast cereal budget. Filmation recycled backdrops, repeated run cycles, and let the story drift wherever it pleased. Yet there's a childlike charm buried under all the chaos parrots that sound like neighborhood DJs, and moral lessons about teamwork delivered with straight faces. For all its silliness, Mysterious Island proved one thing: Filmation could turn any pop culture icon, even the Brady Bunch, into cartoon adventurers of pure Saturday morning legend. The Fat Albert Halloween Special, 1977. Every studio had a Halloween episode, but Filmation went all in with the Fat Albert Halloween Special. It captured the trick-or-treat energy of the 70s perfectly. Kids in homemade costumes, spooky streets, and the lesson that fear sometimes hides kindness. The gang accidentally scares an old woman and spends the rest of the story learning empathy and courage. Animation-wise, it's pure Filmation stiff movements, but loaded with heart. The backgrounds glow orange and brown like a nostalgic pumpkin spice dream. While critics rarely mention it, this special quietly shaped the tone for countless animated Halloween lessons that followed. It balanced genuine frights with community spirit and left kids feeling both spooked and safe. It's no Charlie Brown, but it's got the same autumn soul and a theme song that still slaps decades later. The Fat Albert Christmas Special, 1977. Filmation knew how to milk a holiday, and the Fat Albert Christmas Special went for emotion over slapstick. The story revolved around a single mother and her child stuck in the cold, finding warmth and kindness from the Junkyard Gang. Instead of flashy humor, the episode leaned on empathy, a surprisingly grounded approach for a Saturday morning cartoon. The music swelled with gospel-style harmonies, and the moral felt sincere without being syrupy. Animation quirks aside, it's arguably one of Filmation's most heartfelt efforts, proving the studio could do emotional storytelling as well as goofy comedy. The message hit hard. Compassion isn't seasonal. It's the type of cartoon that sneaks up on you, reminding you that Filmation didn't just chase ratings sometimes. It aimed straight for the heart. The Weird Harold Special, The Great Go-Kart Race, 1973. Here's one you almost never hear about: The Great Go-Kart Race. It starred Weird Harold, one of Fat Albert's quieter friends, in his own short-lived spin-off special. The premise? A neighborhood go-kart derby that turns into a race between ego and teamwork. It's a simple story told with surprising energy, squealing tires, jazzy soundtracks, and that unmistakable Filmation grain that makes it feel handcrafted. Harold learns leadership, friendship, and mechanical skill all in one afternoon. While it never became a series, the special proved Filmation could stretch beyond its main characters. It gave supporting players a rare spotlight, delivering a little life lesson with genuine fun. For trivia lovers, this was one of Filmation's earliest attempts at a pilot within a universe. It didn't catch fire, but it showed the studio's willingness to experiment even with a wrench and a box of bolts. Essop's Fables, 1971. Before Filmation leaned fully into licensed heroes, it tested the waters with something literary. Essop's Fables. Imagine moral tales told with bright 70s design, booming narration, and lessons that landed like bedtime stories from a teacher who meant well. The production was minimalist but efficient, each story wrapped up neatly in 10 minutes, mixing slapstick with ethical takeaways. What stood out was the studio's attempt to modernize ancient fables without losing their message. You'd see talking foxes strut in bell-bottoms and lions lounging in suburban dens. It was weirdly modern, weirdly sincere, and entirely Filmation. Though largely forgotten now, the special cemented Filmation's identity as the studio that wanted cartoons to teach something, even when the drawings barely moved. Educational TV never looked quite this trippy again. Flash Gordon, The Greatest Adventure of All, 1979. If you thought Filmation's heroes were all goofy and gentle, Flash Gordon, The Greatest Adventure of All will surprise you. This was their ambitious attempt at serious science fiction cosmic battles, political undertones, and a surprisingly dark tone for network animation. The story followed Flash on his mission to stop Ming the Merciless, rendered with sharp angles and a pulpy Art Deco aesthetic. It aired later as a TV movie, but insiders know it was meant for theaters. The pacing feels cinematic. The score soars with adventure, and the animation occasionally pushes past Filmation's usual stiffness. You can see the studio stretching its muscles, aiming to rival Japanese imports and big-budget rivals. Though overshadowed by the 1980 live-action Flash Gordon, this animated version holds up as one of Filmation's best-kept secrets, proof they could do space opera with serious flair. Fabulous Funnies, 1978. Before The Simpsons or Garfield and Friends, Filmation tried to bring newspaper comic strips to life with Fabulous Funnies. It was a Saturday morning series that mashed together classic comic icons like Alley Oop, Nancy, Broomhilda, and the Captain and the Kids, all sharing one animated universe. The concept sounded brilliant. Revive America's favorite funny pages for a new generation. The execution? Chaotic, to say the least. Characters from totally different worlds shared the screen. Jokes fell flat, and the animation moved like it was fighting gravity. Still, Fabulous Funnies deserves credit for ambition. It was Filmation's love letter to nostalgia before retro became a buzzword. The studio even threw in vintage-style gags and punchlines straight out of Sunday newspapers. Though it lasted barely one season, it marked one of Filmation's last attempts to adapt classic humor before superheroes took over. It's forgotten, flawed, but oddly fascinating, the kind of creative swing that reminds you why the 70s were such a fearless era for animation. Groovy Ghoulies and Friends compilation movie, late 1970s. Before the age of streaming marathons, Filmation invented the compilation. Groovy Ghoulies and Friends stitched together episodes from various shows, monsters, magicians, and musical mayhem into one long movie night package for syndication. It's chaotic, colorful, and oddly endearing. The Ghoulies perform rock numbers between recycled clips from Sabrina the Teenage Witch and Lassie's Rescue Rangers, making it feel like a musical variety hour that forgot to stop. What makes it special isn't the animation, it's the vibe. This was Saturday morning in one giant dose, perfect for kids who didn't care about continuity. Looking back, it's an early example of cross-branding before the word existed. It may not make narrative sense, but it's pure Filmation charm, a monster mash stitched together with glue, rhythm, and unapologetic fun. Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle movie compilation, 1976. Filmation's Tarzan, Lord of the Jungle was already one of the studio's best-looking shows, rich jungles, muscular designs, and surprisingly mature stories. But in true Filmation style, they bundled episodes into movie-length edits for reruns and foreign markets. The result was Tarzan, the movie, a patchwork of adventures tied together by voiceover and bold music. The animation reused shots like clockwork, yet the atmosphere carried it. Tarzan wasn't just swinging through trees, he debated ethics, fought poachers, and teamed up with ancient civilizations. The storytelling aimed high, almost mythic in tone. It showed that Filmation could be more than cheap laughs, they could deliver pulp adventure with heart. And even in its recycled form, this movie swings higher than you'd expect. The Secret Lives of Waldo Kitty, 1975. Long before parodies became cool, Filmation tried one of their own with The Secret Lives of Waldo Kitty. It mixed live action and animation, half sitcom, Half Daydream, about a shy cat who imagined himself as various heroes, from superheroes to detectives. Think Walter Mitty, but fuzzier and cheaper. Each episode spoofed a different genre, packed with corny jokes and visual gags that were somehow both clever and clumsy. The show struggled with copyright parodies and even faced legal headaches from the Thurber estate, forcing Filmation to rename it Waldo Kitty. Still, it deserves credit as one of the first true mashups of fantasy and pop culture parody in TV history. It was quirky, self-aware, and way ahead of its time, even if no one at the time noticed. Uncle Croc's Block, 1975. Now this one is legendary, and not in a good way. Uncle Croc's Block was Filmation's attempt at a live-action variety show that spoofed kids' television itself. It starred Charles Nelson Riley as a grumpy crocodile host who hated his own audience. Imagine The Muppet Show, but mean-spirited and less charming. The humor was biting, the puppets were strange, and the ratings were a disaster. Filmation later re-edited the surviving footage into a single special for syndication, turning the fragments into a bizarre fever dream. Looking back, you can see what they were trying to do, satirize formulaic TV while still selling it, but audiences weren't ready. Still, it's one of the rarest Filmation artifacts, a time capsule of a studio swinging for the fences and missing gloriously. The New Adventures of Batman, 1977. Wholly recycled frames Batman, Filmation's The New Adventures of Batman reunited Adam West and Burt Ward as the voices of the Caped Crusader and Boy Wonder. To capitalize on the show's popularity, the studio edited together several episodes into a full, feature-length movie for syndication. The result played like a greatest hits reel of wacky villains, from Clayface to the Joker, stitched together with retro flair. Filmation's Gotham was simple, but striking deep blues, glowing spotlights, and enough dramatic pointing to fill a comic book. Despite its flaws, it had genuine Saturday morning soul. Hearing West and Ward deliver those familiar lines gave it nostalgia power that's still hard to beat. It wasn't cinematic, but it was charmingly earnest, the perfect rainy day throwback for superhero fans who love their capes slightly wrinkled. The Brady Kids, 1973. Filmation had already animated America's favorite blended family, but syndication meant recycling, and the Brady Kids movie was born. This film was basically the first 3 episodes glued together, yet it worked surprisingly well as one long story. You got the kids, the magical bird Marlin, and their wild adventures with superheroes, Greek gods, and talking pandas. It was chaotic, sweet, and unintentionally hilarious. The animation cut corners at every turn, but the energy made up for it. Watching it now feels like falling into a time machine powered by bubblegum. There's an innocence to it, that sincere belief that any franchise could be made into a cartoon if you added enough glitter. It's pure Filmation. Messy, lovable, and impossible not to smile at. Fat Albert, late 1970s to early 1980s. When Filmation found something that worked, they milked it, and Fat Albert's holiday trio proved it. The studio bundled 3 specials, Halloween, Christmas, and Easter, into one long-form movie that became a staple in reruns. Together they showcased the full range of the gang's adventures, spooky scares, winter warmth, and springtime reflection. It was moral storytelling in Technicolor, with lessons about compassion, honesty, and courage wrapped in funky music. Despite being stitched together, the pacing worked better than expected. The stories flowed naturally, the animation glowed with seasonal color, and the overall tone was surprisingly timeless. It became the ultimate marathon watch before streaming existed. Whether you were carving pumpkins or hanging ornaments, the Junkyard Crew had your back. Tarzan and the Super 7 compilation, 1978. This was the era of crossovers, and Filmation wasn't about to miss out. Tarzan and the Super 7 mashed together multiple segments: Tarzan, Jason of Star Command, Manta and Moray, and Super Stretch and Micro Woman. It was a wild grab bag of pulp heroes, sci-fi explorers, and undersea adventurers, edited into a movie format for overseas markets. The pacing was erratic, but that's part of its charm. You'd go from jungle battles to cosmic dogfights in seconds. This format showed how Filmation built its brand, maximum content with minimal new work. Yet, somehow it worked. It was fun, colorful, and filled with energy. It was the Saturday morning version of flipping through TV channels and landing on every genre at once. Lassie's Rescue Rangers, 1973. Following the success of Lassie and the Spirit of Thunder Mountain, Filmation expanded the idea into Lassie's Rescue Rangers, and the pilot was packaged as a feature-length adventure. Lassie led a family of environmental protectors fighting pollution, wildfires, and poachers, all with a calm bark and a wagging tail. The tone was oddly serious for a kids' show, pushing themes of conservation and respect for nature long before it became cool. The animation was minimal, but the storytelling was ambitious. This Lassie wasn't just a pet, she was an activist in fur. While it never reached Disney-level fame, the show's movie-length debut was pure Filmation idealism, heroic, educational, and unashamedly wholesome. Mission: Magic, Extended Musical Edition, 1973. To close this list, we end with pure 70s spectacle. Mission: Magic starred none other than pop singer Rick Springfield as an animated version of himself, leading a group of students on magical musical adventures through time and space. Yes, it's as strange as it sounds. The show mixed groovy songs, wild colors, and moral lessons about individuality and kindness. For reruns, Filmation compiled several episodes into a single movie, creating a psychedelic time capsule of music and magic. Springfield's songs were catchy, the message was uplifting, and the visuals looked like a lava lamp exploded in a classroom. It's a perfect finale for our list, the kind of forgotten oddity that could only exist in the 1970s. From haunted bands to eco-warrior dogs, Filmation's Forgotten Vault proves one thing: creativity doesn't always need polish. It just needs guts. These deep cuts may have faded from memory, but their spirit still hums through pop culture today. So, which of these weird wonders deserves a reboot? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe for part 3, and remember, behind every Saturday morning jingle was a studio that dared to dream louder than its budget ever allowed.